The women's college basketball season is almost here, and we got a behind the scenes glimpse of UConn women's basketball at this weekend's open practice. Let's get into it. Welcome into the Built to Ball podcast. So happy to be here today with friend of the show, Colleen. UConn women's basketball hosted an open practice at Sacred Heart. So this was an opportunity to see this year's roster for the first time, see kind of the multiple new pieces that are there, as well as how pieces have evolved over time. So Colleen, you got to go to the event. Can you just tell us a little bit about, take us behind the scenes? What did you see? What was the energy like in that gym?
Yeah, hey T, thanks for having me on.
Of course, happy to have you here.
Yeah, it was really awesome to be able to, go see the team in person. First time fans were there, media was there. It was really cool. It was actually nice that they got to do this, at a different college, a different part of the state, because I feel like fans that maybe don't normally get to travel up to the top of the state. There's people there, I think, from Long Island and Southern Connecticut. So it was really nice. Obviously, it was packed. The line was out the door when you got there. Tons of fans wearing all their UConn gear. You had a lot of Paige Becker's gear, but it was just a good vibe. Everyone was excited to be there, and it's really cool as a UConn fan that's been a fan for a long time. You see those generations of fans that have been following this team forever, right? You have the grandparents who actually my dad actually went to. And he took me when I was younger. So it's really cool to see the grandparents, the parents, the kids. It's just this generation of, UConn fans that everyone keeps coming to see them. So it was nice. And it was small and kind of intimate, which was a good vibe.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I think that's one thing that makes being a fan so special is just the nostalgia of, seeing fans who have been there for decades at this point, bringing their children, their grandchildren, and just Gina Wariam is still around, CD's still around, kind of see the same personalities on the court that we saw growing up is just really cool. And just to see that they're competing at such a high level still is really what amazes me at this point. And I know you and I had the chance to go last year at the Final Four to their open practice and just see kind of the fun behind the scenes energy. Can you kind of compare it to, what's a preseason one like versus an end of the season one like? And what are some of the things that you observed just kind of initially compared to your expectations going in?
Yeah, I actually said that. I was thinking of you because we did get to go to that open practice and we saw South Carolina, their open practice compared to UConn and UConn, the way they just run, even if it's just a fun open practice, it's very structured, right? Everything all the players know where they need to be at all times. CD runs the show. And it was the same thing here. And we didn't really know what we were going to see, right? Was it just kind of we're going to shoot the ball around, it's going to be fun? Absolutely not. There was definitely a different intensity than even what we saw at Tampa. They were very, the girls came in, they knew exactly what the coaches wanted. And it was Gino was kind of, he didn't even talk at all. He was just on the sidelines, and you had CD, Jamel, Morgan, and Tanya running the entire thing, which I assume is typical of what they would do at their regular practice. But definitely intense. Everyone was hustling. There wasn't downtime. It was right into drills, huddle, right into, the next thing, huddle up. So they had the practice players there. Definitely a full-on practice that we got to see in person. So
yeah, and definitely a well-oiled machine. We know that Jamel and Tanya and CD have coached together for years and then reunited, and just the attention to detail, the way that they provide support at every position, CD with the post players and Tanya with the guards, and just, the ability to have that same system every year built in. But part of that is also really the leadership that is on this team now, that has developed, that has been in that system and is now responsible for passing it to the freshmen and the transfers. So you talked a little bit in your piece that you wrote for the Hoops Cap Substack about AZ and Caroline and KK and Ashlyn and just the veteran leadership that you observed from them. Can you talk about some of those moments you saw of just them being those on the court leaders during the practice?
Yeah, I think, and I think coming in, I feel I already had it in my mind that, okay, these are now that, the Paige is gone and Aubrey and Caitlin, who kind of, were those leaders last year, you just already assume it's going to be AZ, it's going to be Caroline, and kind of KK and Ash are like that next, those upperclassmen. So I think I took that with me going in, but I do think it was visible. AZ just, I mean, I feel like the crowd like loves her. It just automatically like that void that kind of Paige left.
Yeah.
It's just like AZ's just kind of stepped into that.
The people's princess.
I mean, yeah, like her vibes are immaculate. Yeah, it was easy, and again, just in the way that they know what the coaches want. There doesn't need to be a ton of dialogue between, like what the next thing is coming, right? The girls know, they get in line, everyone else follows. Caroline, super vocal, really happy to see her back, like full on practice. That was really cool to see. Yeah, and just the way KK just kind of steps into that role. Ash didn't do a ton. Didn't look like she was scrimmaging the entire time, but she was kind of on the sidelines cheering everybody on. So yeah, I feel like those were for me. I feel like so that was the most looked like and sounded like the leaders of the team. And I did notice Sarah Strong seems to be a little bit more like, okay, now I've been here before, a little bit more vocal, and just doesn't look like like a freshman anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Expectations change
Hmm.
once you're not a freshman anymore. You're expected
Yeah.
to contribute to that passing of the legacy and supporting the
Hmm.
next generation of players. I think the Caroline piece is really interesting. Obviously, a fan favorite, and just has had a
Hmm.
really tough go of it in her college career. It's just been sort of really scary at times to just watch her go down with injuries to the head, be in concussion
Hmm.
protocol, have to miss parts of seasons or entire seasons. Did you feel like she was like a player who could be considered in sort of like the first rotation? It sounds like she was sort of considered, in that first, what we would maybe think about a potential starting lineup. So she's back to full contact, and you see her kind of playing a pretty active role in the season's team.
Yeah, I mean, last year was really nice to see her finally come in towards the end of the season and get those limited minutes, but it still was very limited and you didn't really know, how much. I feel like also when I was watching last year, it's still you were afraid when
Yeah.
you watch her, you're afraid to like for her to take like a lot of contact. So what stood out to me was that she was like full out drills, full out practically, in the scrimmage, like good defense. Not afraid to drive to the basket. So I was like, I feel like that's a really great sign for this, part of the year. They were going full out against those practice players. So, yeah, I was really, really, really pleased to see how full out she was going, and hopefully that's the starting point for her, and we'll see a lot more of Caroline this year.
Yeah, happy to just see her on the court. It's with
Hmm.
those types of injuries, you don't know when it can be career ending. So it seems like they're managing it, and she's able to be back in the rotation, which is great news because she's really a leader on the team, and she has been a leader even on the
Hmm.
bench over the past several seasons. So just seeing her get a chance to be on the court doing what she loves is awesome. So that kind of covers like our veterans and kind of who we're expecting to be this sort of emerging leaders of this year's team. But there's a lot of newcomers on this team, both through
Hmm.
the transfer portal and through just recruitment in high school. So some of the newcomers: Sarah Williams, transfer from Wisconsin, highly touted recruit Kaylee Heckel from USC. And then some of the newcomers: Gandhi Malumamel, Blanca
Hmm.
Quinones. What were some of the things you observed from those newcomers, and kind of who stood out to you as someone who can make sort of an immediate impact?
Yeah, it was nice to see, the whole group together, lots of new faces. One of the things that stood out to me was that they look just bigger overall now as a team. I feel like last year with the injuries and everything, they just weren't, right. There's always that question of, can Jana and Ice basically do it all? And then, and Sarah. So I feel like this year, seeing you have Sarah Strong, you have Sarah Williams, you have Jana, you have Ice, plus all the new girls, they look bigger. Sarah Williams definitely, you can tell that she's been here before. I think she'll kind of slide right into, I don't know if it's a starting lineup or not, but definitely she has that experience, so she looked like she was pretty much right into that. um, you know, Already cohesive with the girls already on the floor. And the same thing with Kaylee. I feel like she looked really, really good. You can tell she's played, college ball before. Obviously, she was on a great team in USC last year. And I just feel like she's going to thrive under Gino and CD. And also being back on the East Coast, we've talked about that. She's from the East Coast. She did have, there was a bunch of people wearing heckle jerseys there. So I'm like, this, it must be, family and friends. So yeah, she looked great. And then the freshmen, I think you can tell in some ways that they're still freshmen. They're trying to figure it out. But I think like great pieces. Gandhi looked awesome. I think she's gonna, come behind obviously Sarah. Um, and then Kelly, she's very much like a freshman version of KK Arnold, right? Like
Mhm.
fast, full of energy, not afraid to, drive to the basket and all that. So yeah, I feel like a ton of potential. Not entirely sure like what the starting lineup will look like. Um, but there's, they had lots of combinations going on between the scrimmages too. So I couldn't tell like, oh, this looks like this is his go-to yet. So I guess we'll see in the
Yeah.
next coming weeks.
Yeah, and I think that's what's so exciting about this team is just like there are so many options for what could be a starting lineup, and a
Mm-hmm.
second lineup for this team could be a starting lineup at a lot of other programs, right? Just that's the
Absolutely.
level of talent. So the
Mm-hmm.
concern and the challenge is less like, do we have talent? How do we manage the talent? How do we fit the pieces together? What's our
Right.
identity? And it's an identity shift because Paige is gone. It's a different team, right? They're going to have to figure
Mm-hmm.
out what are those, who is their go-to. My assumption it's some combination of AZ and Sarah on
Yeah.
the offensive end. But like you said, they're just a way bigger team this year. We've seen sort of like guard heavy rotations the past
Mm-hmm.
several seasons, but the team is now, got some serious depth at the post. And Ayanna Patterson is someone who I'm excited to see how she fits in the rotation, and how did she look out on the court in terms of
Yeah.
movement and participation.
Yeah, she definitely very very much like Aubrey Griffin style of play. That's kind of what I got. You remember it's like did she even play at all last year, or was it like
No.
I, I mean, so
Yeah.
that's like super unfortunate, but again, she was also, like with Caroline full out doing everything. But yeah, reminding me a lot of Aubrey Griffin. So her, and then also Blanca we didn't get to see it all either. And then
Yeah,
Morgan
Blanca was,
Shelley.
was out,
Yeah.
not participating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but
So,
some wings, yeah, like all of them, right? Morgan Shelley, Ayanna Patterson,
mm-hmm.
Blanca Quinones, like those are just like athletic big wings, and they fit really well into that sort of like run and gun UConn offense.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, they're I think I remember talking about this when we saw them at the Big East tournament last year. Their defense in person is, and even at this time of year, it's just like it's so intense. And
Yeah.
even if like their shots aren't falling, that defense, and I feel like that's really what we saw also all the way to the Final Four, in Tampa. Their defense is so suffocating at times. It really, the other teams really struggle, and I feel like that's always like their identity. Um, taking that defense with them wherever they go. So that definitely stood out to me as well.
Yeah, I think what's always impressive about seeing their defense up close in person is just like the communication that's happening, just calling out
Hmm.
the screens and
Yeah.
communicating, saying who's got ball, switching. Like it's just like so much communication, and that's just instilled into them in practice. And when you
Hmm.
see it live, it is really something special because it's just really several people working together to do really intense athletic things at the
Hmm.
same time, right? And they're coordinating it because they've done
Hmm.
it so many times. They practice it
Yeah,
until they can do it in their sleep. So that
absolutely.
communication and the crispness, even at this part of the season, just shows the system that's in place and what they're working towards the season.
Yeah. So
So
all
before
good.
we let you go, what are some looking ahead? What storyline or two are you most interested in tracking this season? I know a big one is what's the team going to look like without Paige, who's been their
Hmm.
leader for the past several years. But what are some of the other storylines you're tracking this season as we get started?
Yeah, I said this is hard because I feel like each athlete has their own individual story, that you want to follow. They all have, whether they're coming in as a freshman, first time playing in this country, they're coming back from injury. For me personally, I think it's AZ's story of,
Mhm.
she had this build up, and then she, gets back last year. Her season kind of started off a little bit slow, kind of picked up toward the end, and ending with MOP in the Final Four. So I am hoping, and I think she's going to pick up kind of where she left off. Um, I think she can end up being one of the best players in the country at the end of the year. and take that number one, draft pick spot. So that's kind of, I think one of the major stories that people will be following from UConn. But there's a ton. I mean, Sarah Strong, is she gonna level up again?
Yeah.
KK and Ash stepping into the upperclassmen, Ayana, Caroline coming back from injury. So there's definitely a lot of things that we can follow, we can cover this year. So definitely looking forward to it. Hoping everyone stays healthy.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course you'll be covering it this season, and you cover all the stories. Like you said, we don't focus on one. You do a really great job of both documenting and getting videos and photos, but also writing up the story. So where can people find your work this season, and where are you posting, and where can people sort of just follow your coverage this season?
Yeah, so I kind of like to stay behind the scenes more on Biggie's energy and the Hoops Cap. But I am doing some writing for the Hoops Cap as a Substack. And I am putting some of my content online. I'll be posting more under the Hoops Cap, on their Insta, TikTok.
And Courtside with Call on Instagram.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's my little personal one. So I'm got some content there as well. Thanks,
Yeah.
Steve.
All right. Well, I'm going to promote it if you won't, but thank you so much for taking the time. Cannot wait to cover this season with you. And thank you for
Yeah.
stopping by the show.
Thanks, T.